Well, welcome back into the studio for another Technique Tuesday, and I'm sure you can guess what we're going to be doing today, or at least in part. Once again, I'm going to be altering some of my chipboard pieces, and once again, I had a little shopping fest at UmWow Studio. It's a problem. Hence why I want to share some of my awesome ideas on altering chipboard pieces. So I discovered something last year during Seek, Gather, Create, and I think it was when I was going back to doing a February Seek, Gather, Create, and I altered a bird and discovered something. So we're going to work with that technique. It is a resist technique using embossing powder. So that is where we're getting started today. Thanks for coming along. Alright, so what I'm doing is I'm taking my tray. I have a lot of the finished ones in here and a few of the ones that I have not yet finished, and I am just pulling out some pieces that I want to use, and putting them off to the side here. And I do still have some of these little pieces left. I figured I might as well use up the rest of those as well. And pretty dove. I figured this is also a good time for me to kind of get these pulled out and organized a little bit. So when I originally did this, I had done, and I'll show you an image here of what I did with the resist technique. And that is really where we're going to get started. I had done that on one of these chipboard pieces of the crow or raven. I think I'm going to use that one. Put all my birds in one area. And then here's some more crow or ravens. I think I'm going to do a big one as well. I have a couple mushrooms, a couple of twirly, whatever those things are, and I'm going to hold off on doing these, but I am. So I've got a lot of these texture backgrounds, and it looks like I have two of these, so I think I'm going to do this one. Well, all right, so you're gonna need some embossing ink. So I have this Emboss It Dauber by Ranger as well as a Versamark. I'm going to start trying to use this because I know it comes out thicker, heavier, and I want that. So we're going to pull out some threads and lay them out onto the surface, our substrate that we are going to be doing the embossing on, which in this case is this little piece of paper. And I'm just trying to get these threads separated a little bit. They don't want to go away from their friends. So we're going to dab our embossing ink onto the surface of this paper. And then we're going to lay our fibers into the embossing ink. And we want to push those down into the ink. Sometimes when they're all connected, it makes it a little bit more challenging. If you were to cut these, and I'll show that to you here in a little bit, on some of the smaller things that we're doing, I'll cut my threads down. In my original sample, that's how I had done this. Oops, like I said, fiddly. Okay, that should be good. We're going to transfer this into my tray, and I'm going to come in with this weathered wood distress powder and shake it on. And then I'm going to lift it up and shake it off. And then I'm going to lift the fibers up. I'm going to just swipe up some of that dabbing, the ink and the excess powder that got onto this heat pad. And you're going to need a heat setting tool, not a blow dryer, but an actual heat setting tool for this, because you need the high heat to be able to activate your embossing powder. All right, so you can see where I smudged it right here, but you can definitely see where those threads were. And that is kind of the effect that we're looking for. Now I'm going to take it to these chipboard pieces, and I'm going to cut up my threads into smaller strands and be more specific about my placement of those and show you what kind of look you can get with those. Now, one of the things that I did on my first attempt at this, when I discovered this, was I put some gesso onto the surface so that it wasn't so dark. So here definitely you can see the lines everywhere, but it's the craft color that's coming through, so it's pretty dark. Here we didn't have as many. This is a chunkier, this is one of the baked textures by Seth Apter. It's chunkier, so I think I would have been better to have gone with like a DMC floss, something larger. You can definitely see the marks, so it has a very natural look to it. I want to try this again, but I want to try with a bigger floss, but I also want to do this bird and put some white gesso on it. So I'm going to gesso this and put it to the side to dry, and then we'll come back to it. So you can see on my original attempt the wow factor. So here you can definitely see I've left bigger spaces. Now you could paint this with gesso and have the white showing through. You could paint it with a brown or green or whatever you chose to do. But there are options. There's so much room for playing with this. now you have that dramatic effect where you can see those lines coming through. I just love that. It gives, I mean, especially with like the ravens and stuff, it gives it such a nice mystical kind of creepy look. I don't think of ravens as creepy, but a lot of people do. And it really gives it that mystical look. All right, something I've been wanting to do is to try a little different type of fiber. Something fuzzy. And I don't know if this is going to work because this might soak up a lot of the ink, but I'm gonna give it a go. I'm gonna do these in, I'm gonna emboss this in 2 separate passes. I'm gonna do the top first with the threads. It's helpful to have the threads hanging off the edges because then you can grab them. Doesn't that look cool? I just think that looks so neat, accentuating the surface. And I'm going to go over the stem just with some frayed burlap, no fibers, just to finish it off. Now this is the glazing, so it's translucent. Oh, that actually did something weird with the gesso, I think. I'm not quite sure, but it looks pretty cool. All right, some more mushrooms. Once again, going to, actually, you know what? I'm not going to put gesso on it. I'm going to see how it looks with a smaller, these might be hard to get off of the surface, but I'm going to make some smaller fuzzy pieces. We'll see if this works. This is all an experimentation, so we'll see. Okay, and I'm gonna once again use the glazing in the mustard seed. I don't know. We'll see what that does. You really can't see it at all. Not without first putting the gesso on there. Not with the glazing media. It's just too translucent. I should have used the mustard seed in the distress embossing powder. We're gonna try and duplicate that. Let's see how that looks. Oh, this is funny because this one right here still had some of the fibers left on it. So I'm going to put a little bit of gesso on the bottom of this and do the similar than what I did here at the bottom of that mushroom. I really love what that glaze, that frayed burlap glaze does when gesso's underneath it. I think that looks so cool, especially because we got some of those fibers that stuck and it gives it a little fuzzy feel to it. So that's fun. I hope you're getting an idea of different things that you would like to take to your table and give a try and experiment. Experimentation, I just think, is like the essence of it, of finding different methods. So I put a little bit of gesso on this little flower. I am going to that same kind of small fiber look. So I'm going to do the flowers first. So that's the antique linen, and then I think I'm going to come in right over the top of that with, let's do the mustard seed. It's in the yellow family. I'm going to give this a little pop of ink so it'll stick. Might as well play, right? Little splotches where the fibers were, and then stayed the antique linen distress in the other areas. Doesn't have very much of a pop to it, so we might come in and do some inking around it in another color. So let's come back to that. I want to do these stems in frayed burlap. Well, that's fun. So I'm thinking I'm going to come in and do some inking on this. So I'm going to set this aside to really dry well. And I want to come in and add some color to these leaves and around these flowers, but I don't want to wait for it to dry completely. So I'm going to set that to the side. between the baked textures, the threads, and yeah. Oh my gosh, I just love how you can see the wisps of the threads in here. Some of it bled together because there's a lot there. The baked textures are big and chunky, but you can see a lot of it right in here. And then the glimpses of the gesso behind. And the way that these mix together, it makes a mess when you do it in multiple colors like this. But oh my gosh, it is so worth it. Love it. All right, so all I'm gonna finish up doing is adding some ink to these. I decided to do this one as well. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come in with the red around the flowers, and really it's just gonna wipe off wherever there's embossing powder. So I'm really just trying to get any edge that is there, because you can see it's gonna it is archival, so it will stay on if I let it sit there for a long time, but I'm okay if some of it comes off. I just want a transition in color, and I'm gonna come in and right in the center of these leaves add the peeled paint. And then I'm gonna come in with the Rustic Wilderness and edge the leaves. So I get that multi-tonal effect with that darker green, edging it up. And I might even come in and get a little heavier handed just on the tips. All right, and then on this, I'm gonna come in pretty heavy-handed and see if I can get where the chipboard is, add a little bit of green back there. That's where the threads were. Wherever the green is now is where the threads were. It's darker than it was, but I really wanted it a little bit more earthy. All right, I am so happy with how these turned out. I hope that you go to your table or wherever it is you create and try your hand at this technique, a resist with fibers and embossing powder. All right, so I think we're gonna have to have another chipboard festival, but you know, I love playing with chipboards, so I'm excited to move on and try yet another technique. So I hope you've gotten something out of this one. If you have, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't yet, please consider subscribing to my channel. We'd love to have you here with our little community. All right, take care.